Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Thursday night. It is time for Revolutionary Change. I'm Jen Perelman.
I'm Peter Hager, and don't adjust your screens. I am half dead, but I'm...
He's a little sick. We have a little bit of a different show tonight, too, right?
Yes, we do. So for those of you who obviously like a good crossover, as soon as we wrap up with our stream, within a few minutes thereafter, we will be joining...
Early. We're going on with Sabby at 9. So, guys,
well,
we're going to...
Well, hold on. I did text her. We texted earlier, and I said that we would be on no later than 9:15.
Oh, okay. Because she texted me, but I didn't even know she had my number. And I'm like, Sabby?
Well, I gave it to her.
Oh, okay.
I gave it to her. I hope you don't mind. I didn't mean to.
No, I don't care. It was just I recognized 617 is the Boston area code. I'm like, huh.
That kind of narrows it down right there.
It narrows it down to me, for sure.
True.
So, guys, our guest is coming on in a little bit. He's coming on early, and then we will be ending a little bit shorter tonight. So that's okay.
I want everyone to understand.
No, Sabby's not coming here, guys. We're going on with Sabby at like somewhere between when we end here, we're going on with Sabby.
Correct.
So check us on over on Sabby Sabs after we leave.
Correct. And so I want to be very clear about who rises and who doesn't in politics. And if at this point it's not clear enough, when you see what happens to people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie versus somebody like Anna Paulina Luna, who, by the way, that's not her real name. What a surprise. It turns out that all roads always lead back to Israel. And here's why. So I have asked the speaker to ban Code Pink. I was just physically hit by their head organizer. This is right after I questioned Secretary Rubio about them. It is time Speaker Johnson banned them. Jen, why would
I can't. So for people who do not know who this woman is speaking about, she is talking about no other than our love, Medea Benjamin. And if anybody knows Medea Benjamin, she doesn't assault anybody. She's a pacifist, not to mention she probably weighs 85 pounds soaking wet. So right off the bat, we know this is ridiculous. I don't know who this representative is until today. Like, I'd ever heard of this woman. I don't care either. But if you mess with Medea, then you're messing with me.
You're messing with all
so now we have a problem. See, now I know who this is, and now we have a problem. That's what I feel like.
Well, let's see exactly what this so-called assault looked like, or so she claimed.
I just
informed.
Whoa, okay.
You know, I wish we.
Oh my God.
You know, I wish. All right, let's do it again.
Oh my God, people.
You are misinformed.
Whoa, okay.
Wait, you just touched me. Oh my God. You know what this
I don't even think it was intentional. It almost looks like just a hand movement from walking. Like it looks like, she's just walking.
Well, you know what this reminds me of? I know Colin probably doesn't have it handy, but I was mentioning to this earlier about
the guy who like throws himself in front of
you got the Zio in. Okay, what is that town square place in Paris called? Where it's kind of the court. It's like the Paris court or whatever you call that. Or I mean, it might not even be Paris, actually. I know it's in France.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
The point is that you had the Palestinian protesters, you had the Zio scum who decided to walk over and harass them, and they weren't having it. And the next thing you know, he's like, oh, they attacked me. And the cop's like, what?
Oh, please let them. First of all, we know that this doesn't go anywhere, right? Like, it's silly. Nobody's going to prosecute this. So it's stupid is what it is.
Well, we are definitely under we are of the belief that this is in many ways the Streisand effect. You were better off not saying anything, just forgetting that any of this happened, that you even captured this on video. But instead, not only do you claim that this is assault, which is just, I could show you what assault is if you'd like. You really want to find out.
Take any picture of what Zio Hell is doing in Gaza would qualify as an assault,
Colin, but while I play this
Medea Benjamin isn't, she couldn't, you have to really understand how ludicrous that is. So if you, I can't even describe. First of all, she's teeny. She's like this. She's a pacifist. Like it's just so absurd. I can't entertain negative Medea speak.
Yeah, and to me, it's a reflection of how much they hate people that are anti-war, because war is profitable.
Oh yeah.
And Medea is as effective as anybody on Capitol Hill that is on the left. If you want to talk about the true left in the United States, Medea Benjamin and Code Pink, when it comes to the anti-war movement, that's as close as you're going to get. That's about as good as it gets. And so because she's effective in what she does, they can't stand that. And so Anna Paulina Luna, who already is a grandstander looking for her next opportunity in the political ranks, is going to talk about something that doesn't make any sense. This is just going to make it worse. And so we'll leave it to our good friend to have this statement to make regarding what happened.
Representative Anna Paulina Luna has said that she will help to make AIPAC register as a foreign agent.
If I support reforming FARA, will you stop taking money from the CCP?
Yes, absolutely. Let's shake on that.
All right,
okay,
she's
because
gonna
we
stop
take
taking
no money from the CCP.
Wait, do you
Zero.
support-
So now
support
you have
Ms.
to.
Singham?
Now you have to do
Did
your
Ms.
part of
Singham
things.
not actually get money from the CCP? How do you think they made their money?
Absolutely, they do
Are
not.
you aware that they're
Absolutely not.
defying
Let's shake
subpoenas?
on that again.
Are you
because
aware
that was
that they're
such a
defying
good deal.
subpoenas?
Agreement that we shook hands on is that she's going to strengthen the Foreign Agent Registration Act, known as FARA. Now, she thinks that will affect Code Pink because we are attached to the Communist Party of China, but we have no attachment. So what it would really do is force AIPAC to register as a foreign agent because they are a foreign agent of Israel.
They love saying that she gets her money from the Chinese Communist Party. It's silly. It's silly. This is like the people that were talking about us getting money from George Soros when it's something that can just so easily be looked up. Like this is public information. You can look up where Code Pink gets their money. It's not a secret.
And we were discussing this earlier. See, for those who are not familiar with why they constantly say that Code Pink is an agent of China, is because the primary benefactor of Code Pink is married to—
You mean the founder, one of the founders besides Medea?
The co-founder's husband is a very wealthy entrepreneur, and he happens to be a socialist. And not only is
oh my God, not a socialist. Oh my God, the horror.
Yeah, but no, socialists are not allowed to make money, Jen. Remember that. That's not allowed. So ostensibly, why they paint him as a communist or as being paid by China is because this gentleman has a very favorable opinion about Chinese culture and thinks that the United States could learn quite a bit about how China conducts business amongst their people. That's actually something that we could actually learn from and say, hey, maybe things could actually be better here in the States if we were a little bit more like China. And I would say from a technological and social perspective, yeah, I would say that that's probably a very good idea. Remember, China has universal health care and high-speed rail and a much cleaner environment. So they have a one-party government. What the hell do you think we have? You think this is a two-party government?
I love when people say, well, China's got a state media. Like, what kind of media do you think we have? Like, our media is owned by the same people that own the Congress. You see it's just, they just make private money on it. It's still state media. It's the
same. Colin, before we bring in our guest, could you please pull up the YouTube post that I made earlier today and just pull up the image? I want people to understand crystal clear that this is the reason why anybody, it's not just Anna Paulina Luna. This is anybody in politics.
Anna Paulina
if you want
Luna.
to understand,
why do people need 3 names? Who needs a name like that? Anna Paulina Luna. Please.
That's not her real name.
It's
Her
so
last name is her last name is Hoffermeyer, I think is
Hoffermeyer?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you could put 2 and 2 together.
I can put 2 together.
If you want to know why this closeted Zion, well, she's not really closeted anymore, but if you want to understand why they rise in the ranks, this is why. See, when you do this, you are proving that you have an agenda. Now, it's one thing if you are just having, let's say, favorable commentary, which is bad enough, towards the state of Israel. It's another thing entirely if you do this. You see, You do this because you're actively seeking their approval, their support, so that you can benefit from it. That's the only person who does this. And you want to know when this picture was taken, Jen? I'm sure you have an idea.
I don't know. It's all gross to me, really.
The last time Netanyahu graced us with his genocidal presence on the House floor when he made his speech. And she sought him out to have this photo up. So this is the person accusing Medea Benjamin of being a foreign agent.
Yeah. Well, here's my thoughts on him.
I want you to get this fuck where he breathes. I want you to find this Nancy boy, Elliot Ness. I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to go to the middle of the night. I want to piss on his head.
Just saying. I didn't say it. Capone said it. Don't blame me.
You want to get Capone? When he says one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue.
I'm just saying, I guess that woman and I have different priorities, I'd say.
We certainly do. Anna, you're not fooling anybody. Free Palestine.
Free Palestine. So, guys, our guest tonight is Professor Charles Derber. He was on a couple of years ago when I had read his book, Dying for Capitalism, which is great, by the way. But he has a more recent book out. He is a professor of sociology at Boston College. He focuses on capitalism, globalization, power, oligarchy, all of the things that we are constantly talking about. And he has a new book out, and the link is in the description. And so we want to bring him on. It's Fighting the Oligarchy is the new book, which is what we are trying to do here. So welcome back.
Welcome back, Charles Derber.
Listen to you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. How are you?
I loved hearing you because you're talking about Medea Benjamin, I love Medea Benjamin. She's the most wonderful, progressive, humanistic, peace-loving, humane person in the world.
Yeah.
And everything you were saying about her was just great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, can you believe this? And this is the second time that we know of where somebody, the other one being my former Congresswoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, had filed an assault charge against Medea and sent the Capitol Police to her house. Like, it's so absurd to think that, like, especially if you've ever met Medea in person, like
I know. It's not surprising, but it's just a sign of where we are. Yeah.
So before we get into this new book, I mean, the last time you were on, it was really, we were focusing on the book that came out in 23, the Dying for Capitalism. And I'm just curious, how much worse have things gotten that you went from dying for capitalism and now we're fighting the oligarchy? Like, what do you notice has changed in the past couple of years for better or worse?
Oh my God. That could take 3 years, but the basic, I could say it in a sentence. I mean, things have gotten so much worse. Whether we're talking about, that book was about extinction due to climate change and war. And I could add a few things to that now. It's just, we're in the worst period. I've been around for a while. We're in the worst period of my lifetime for sure. And maybe one of the worst periods of history. It's just a really terrible time. And it's been, that's why I keep writing all this stuff. Since I talked to you last, I wrote another book called Bonfire, which is about the suicide. It's about what I call sociocide, by which I mean the collective suicide of society, about how the given powers that be are basically breaking us apart, breaking down relationships, and undermining the possibility of any kind of real sort of sense of we as against me, sort of a complete neoliberal, pure individualistic culture. And how I related that, it turns out in that book, one of the many things I found was that about 70% of people say that they eat all their meals alone, which I just thought was an interesting sort of data point because, food and sharing food is something I think people think of as sort of a real place where you are with people you care about and, get some of your humanity. And the fact that so many people are eating all their meals alone is just a a marker of how, I mean, you guys were just talking about China. I'm working right now with an international scholar from China who's quite wonderful. Actually, she reminds me of Medea in certain ways. And, she reflects, you were talking about the kind of social dimensions of China. China has this really strong sense of history and a kind of collective culture where you don't really, this kind of crazy egomaniac kind of, just going all out for yourself for money. It just doesn't take root in the same way in China. And so I liked what you were saying about China as well, that China has a lot we can learn from. It really has a kind of culture of community and collectivity and kind of social distribution where, I think they look at America and are kind of insane, hyper individualism and capitalist, insanity. So anyway, I was just really grooving on what you guys were saying. It was really appropriate and good. This new book is called Fighting Oligarchy, and it's a book about populism. And I think it's important because I think people have come to think about populism as this horrible Trumpian, demagogic thing. And of course, there is a tradition of right-wing populism, which is really important to understand. And there's really at least two populisms. And this book that one of the books I've most recently done is called Fighting Oligarchy. It's about how Trump came into power as a right-wing populist, which is really not a populist in the traditional sense at all. When I say the word populism to you, what does it mean? What does it connote to you?
Well, we think of populism as what the popular people want, right? So we think there's left populism and there's right populism.
Exactly. And my book is sort of an effort to, I try to write very simply and clearly and give a little history to current events. And what this book shows is there's always been these two populisms in America. And one of them is going to win because populism emerges when countries and the world goes into crisis. And populism is a kind of shake up the establishment. I'm not going to, we have two sort of corporate parties, and both of them are kind of, prior to Trump, of course, has begun to change that a little bit. But the Democrats are I used to say there's a Bush and a Bush light, and, the Democrats have been Bush light for too long. And so what I try to do in this book is say, look, it's no surprise that Trump won, because populism, whether it's the right-wing version or the left-wing, what I call positive populism, is one of those two is going to win out, because when people's lives are being torn apart, they can't survive economically, and they're facing, existential crises all over the place, both locally in their lives and in the world. You're going to have some kind of populist movement going on. And I wanted to sort of make clear in that book that there's a really scary history of right-wing populism that goes all the way back into the founding of the country. But there's also this left-wing populism. I don't know how many people know it, but during the first Gilded Age, when Rockefeller and Carnegie and Morgan and the first robber barons came around, there was a movement, you guys know this, which turned into the People's Party in 1892. It was called the Populist Movement. There's a great book by a historian named Lawrence Goodwin called The Populist Moment, where he says it was the most democratic moment in American history. And it was about a movement of ordinary people who were dealing, the first billionaire in America was in 1890 was John D. Rockefeller. And these populists were just, poor farmers and a few workers. And they were, there was a pretty powerful, J.P. Morgan was just emerging as the founder of American financial capitalism. And he was pushing up interest rates in a way that were squeezing these farmers. And this populist movement got together. And I really like it because it was like a really locally based, very democratic, very kind of socialist movement, in the sense that, one, It was very, it really spoke to people of all, people who were poor, who were working, went across race and gender to some degree, although not fully. And their goal was to basically have Wall Street taken over by the people. This was a kind of saying very early on, saying there is something so deeply pathological about this emerging financial center of America that it's going. They knew 140 years ago that it was going to destroy much of the world, and I like it because it's when this first. You can say the abolitionists were a kind of populism. But I think the real populist movement grew in this period when the robber barons were taking over America. And it's not surprising because, positive, what I call positive populism or progressive or left-wing populism always emerges when there's this kind of, incredible spike in corporate power and corporate, exploitation, which becomes so severe that even in a country like ours, which has been taught to ignore class and to basically think that corporations and the market are the answer to everything, you get the rise of this kind of sort of positive kind of populism. If you don't get that, you're going to get the right-wing populism. Trump was elected because he said, "I'm really pissed at what these guys, these corporations and these foreigners are doing too. They're outsourcing jobs. He was saying, I don't like foreign wars." At the time, Kamala Harris was saying, let's go and support, the Israelis in the Middle East and Palestine. They ran, the Democrats ran a terrible campaign, and it was just, people understand. I think, people who were just wondering, well, how could Trump win? All you had to do is look at what the Democrats were doing, which was just essentially abandoning.
Now I can see why. Now I could see why, Jen, you think Mr. Derber is your spirit animal. This makes.
Well, he's a revolutionary. I understand it. When you were talking about a populist group, are you talking about the Grange?
Yes, there's included the Grange. There's a lot of. There have been different historical interpretations because there were some racist and elements of that. But when you look carefully at it, there were populists and in the Grange, including in the South, who crossed race. They were trying to, they tend to be racially separated, but they unified across. There was the beginning of a real class politics that was emerging.
Well, I always felt that Bernie's run in 2015 and 2016, when people think, people were saying he was like FDR. I'm like, no, he was William Jennings Bryan. Like, he was running that very similar working man's populist movement that, in my opinion, was captured much more by Teddy Roosevelt than anybody else did at the time. In fact, I think a lot of elements of that were not just part of his 2 terms, but also the Bull Moose run. And there's many reasons why it died. Personally, I think that Woodrow Wilson had a huge hand in that. And I also think that we're seeing remnants of it trying to rise up again right now. And it's very interesting. It has to be, because you're in New England, and obviously you're seeing all the the hoopla surrounding Plattner's run in Maine. And now what you're seeing, regardless of what you think of him personally, his populist rhetoric from the left is causing the establishment Democratic Party class to just pretty much outright come and say that they support Susan Collins for re-election. Like, that's how deliberate this is getting now. And so how much more obvious could it be that the 2-party system is a lie, like, as far as I'm concerned?
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. To give a little bit more hope here, I do think that because of the resistance that's going on the streets, and that so many millions of people have been involved in, they've just had enough. You're beginning to see a small group. Take people like, for example, we know that AOC and Bernie have been, populists, sort of socialist populists for a while. But I didn't expect people like Senator Murphy from Connecticut or Jeff Merkley from Oregon or even Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. These are kind of mainstream Democrats who have joined the kind of resistance on the streets, and they're beginning to talk a little bit more like populists. And, I think we're in a period now where the class issues, the economic class issues, have become so overwhelming. for the, most of the people in the country, that it's become impossible for the Democrats. I mean, I agree with you that I think that I can imagine that somebody like Kamala Harris is going to get re-nominated as the, presidential person.
Don't threaten the Democratic establishment with a good time, Mr.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
Oh, it's impossible. And what this book is about is really about, what's amazing is that even in the Trump base, you're seeing a kind of progressive populism. In other words, they took seriously his rhetoric that there was something profoundly wrong with their jobs being sent overseas and the kind of tax. I mean, he was saying a lot of things like, I'm going to shake this whole friggin' establishment up. I'm going to change things for you guys, you ordinary people. I'm going to make the world better. I'm going to get rid of these people running the country. And I mean, I can understand why people would vote for him rather than for the Democrats, because they were running mainstream corporate, kind of politics. I think the question of what's going to happen in 2 years or in this fall, I do think there's been the beginnings of a shift. You're seeing the beginning of a kind of, I wouldn't agree that it was the Teddy Roosevelt populism. I mean, I think the more, if you say where are the best Democratic Party examples of populism, I would say it was who actually gained power. I mean, I would say, Eugene Debs was a great example. Eugene Debs was a anti-war socialist who was a labor leader in the New Deal. I'm sorry, in the 1890s in the robber baron. And then he ran for president after he was, he was anti-war in World War I. Wilson, who was a fascist, basically, Woodrow Wilson. I don't know why he's always called a progressive. He was a lost cause Southerner.
Not here. We've given him the do hate here.
Because, Mr. Derber, as you know, they say history is written by the victors. And
right, exactly.
Purposes, that's the reason why. When somebody says, who's the worst president in American history, I say, it's a toss-up. It's basically between Andrew Johnson and Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, you're right. Woodrow Wilson used to do all those movies of Birth of a Nation. He'd show them in the White House. And why that's important is that form of Democratic Party has persisted over a very long period of time. I mean, he put Debs ran for president, and he got over 1 million votes. And Wilson put him in prison. And I would say that the New Deal was probably the closest we got to a Democratic Party becoming a little bit of a countervailing power. Remember, FDR said, I'm a traitor to my class, and I'm proud to be that, and he said, I desperately want you to form unions and to organize. And there was a kind of sort of dialogue going on between the White House and ordinary people and the labor movement that was, I think, the best possible sort of model. I mean, if we're going to get anything good out of the Democrats these days, it's going to be some variant of that. I mean, we are seeing some growth in the labor movement. The fact that the labor movement has been out, really leading much of the resistance. I mean, the AFL-CIO has been, and, you're seeing in the labor movement a shift away from Cold War kind of labor politics, which, ruined a lot of earlier labor movement in the 60s and so forth, where it was so heavily drenched in the militarism of the Cold War. And now you're seeing new labor forces, especially, the teachers, the nurses, but, the SEIU, AFL, who are beginning to say, look, we're not just trying to get a collective bargaining, win for our members. We need a transformation in this country. I think the resistance on the streets has helped build that consciousness a little bit. And they're throwing a lot of, the fact that so many federal workers have been laid off and a lot of it, you're seeing an emergence of a new kind of energy in the labor movement. And that is that's important for what might happen in the Democratic Party, because the Democrats depend on labor for a lot of their grassroots organizing. And so I think that if the labor movement can continue its own shift toward a more progressive anti-war, I mean, the fact that, the UAW, Sean Fain came out very strongly against Gaza and against the war. That was really important because it was one of the few times that the labor movement had really stood up on an anti-war issue, which is, to my mind, always crucial. And so I think that, I think there is hope. I mean, one of the reasons I wrote this book, Fighting Oligarchy, was to show there is this tradition in the United States. I always feel like if you want to try to understand what's going to happen and what's going on now, you should know a fair amount of the story, of history and what's happened before. And, what I tried to do in this book is show, one, there is this really scary, frightening history of right-wing populism that's very powerful and goes far back. Trumpism is not an invention of Trump. It goes way back. This kind of fascism, it goes right back to the beginning of the country. And it has a long, powerful history, which I tell in this book. At the same time, there is this history, which we can gather some hope from, which is this history of a more, let's call it class-based, left progressive populism, which I think is beginning to emerge. And unless we're gonna see more Trumpism, unless the Democratic Party moves away from where it's been for, ever since, the biggest migration that we should be talking about is the migration of the white working class from the Democratic Party, which it was 100% there in the New Deal, to the Republican Party. Trump he won based on the immigration into the Republican Party, where basically the Democrats shoved all these workers out because they abandoned class politics. They abandoned the working class, and they developed a kind of identity politics, sort of what I call a siloed identity politics, where they talked about really important issues like race and gender, but in a way that was perfect for the right and for capitalism. It was a way of getting people based on race to be divided from each other, men and women to be divided. The Democratic Party had been the perfect capitalist party. I mean, capitalism has always looked for racial division. And the identity politics that the Democratic Party threw up set forward and ran on, was that perfect kind of identity politics that corporations use to essentially get white workers to say, hey, we're your guys, because these Democrats are basically calling you privileged racists, And so basically there's a story here about what has happened to the working class after the New Deal, when basically there was a complete revolution in the country. And it wasn't just about Reagan. It really was about Reagan. But Reagan was beginning to just reel in this working class that felt legitimately and totally abandoned by the Democratic Party after the New Deal. Clinton came in. Bill Clinton is a real villain in this story.
Yes.
About Democratic villains, I'd go to Woodrow Wilson. I'd go to Bill Clinton. He said, remember in his inaugural speech in 1992, he said, we're no longer going to be a party of government or of regulation. We're going to be
the day of big government is over.
The day of big government is over. He said that exactly. Right. Thank you. And he said, we are going to be a third way. He was sort of talking like Tony Blair in Britain and Maggie Thatcher sort of era. And he basically succeeded in throwing out the whole, basis of any kind of populist politics in the Democratic Party. And in many ways, Barack Obama continued that tradition. I don't know if you know this, but like the wealth gap between well-to-do blacks and working class blacks expanded very strongly in the Obama era. And this was part of a period where Obama himself was bailing out, after the 2008 crisis, was bailing out the banks and Wall Street again, when they obviously should have been completely taking control, going back to the original populists of the first robber baron age, and basically taken over Wall Street. Instead, they gave everything back to the guys on Wall Street that messed up the country in 2008. So, we have this since the end of the New Deal. The Democrats abandoned any semblance of a real people's class-based politics, which at least had gotten power. You know, FDR was the only president. And maybe a little bit of my saying positive things. My father was a labor economist, and he was a New Deal. He wrote a lot about labor and the New Deal. So I grew up in a family where we were talking at the dinner table about labor and the New Deal and so forth. So I grew up on this stuff. But I came to, and when I was in college in the 60s and 70s, I had sort of said the New Deal was completely irrelevant because we needed a real revolution that the 60s were beginning to deal with. Not that I've abandoned that, but I've gone back to see the merits of what the New Deal was able to achieve, which was it was able to create one period in American history where the Democratic Party really did sort of begin to abandon this corporate obsession and money and to move toward an embrace of a kind of reformist version of a class politics. And, you know, it was like a 3 or 4 decade period that ended with the late 70s, and the Democratic Party with Reagan and then Clinton coming in simply acted as if the New Deal never existed. They basically decided to roll it back. And that's been our problem ever since. And I mean, Joe Biden gave a little bit of he was an unwavering militarist, and to be a militarist and to throw all that money at a time that Trump could say he was anti-war, and when everybody realized that these wars were bankrupting the country and were totally immoral and genocidal, it was just unbelievable that he was so, but he was so resolute. He did introduce, he moved away from where Clinton and Obama had been, which was he moved a little bit further toward a kind of, let's call it a Keynesian kind of, it wasn't the neoliberal economics of Clinton and Obama. It was a little bit better, but not very much. It was never a challenge to the class system or to capitalism. And, I think, what you said about Bernie Sanders, I mean, I think, in 2016, Bernie was running strong. You may remember I think he won the primaries tell me if I'm right, in Michigan and he won Michigan, and he won a few other Midwestern industrial states because he was expressing what I'm calling this positive popular thing. I think Bernie and AOC are two of the most powerful exponents of that point of view, and they're very popular. I mean, in the resistance,
the problem is, Professor Derber, is that I can't help it. I respect my elders. The reason, Charles, that, and I'm coming at this, you're from a boomer perspective, I'm from a millennial perspective. I think it is very important to understand that Bernie Sanders' presidential run in 2015 and 2016 was the most inspiring presidential run and the greatest faith that anybody could have had in populism in America since JFK was president and then was gunned down. And we haven't seen anything since then. The problem is that Bernie was not willing to go where he needed to go. He needed to be willing to be a political martyr in order to get the changes needed in order to get this thing moving. And when the convention came around in 2016 and he had all of the momentum at his back, it was obvious what Wasserman Schultz and the rest of them were doing behind the scenes to rig the primary system. I was in it knee deep for several months, really got to see it up close and personal. The fact that he wasn't willing to take the fight where it needed to go in order to break the Democratic Party, it's why I have no faith in AOC, because she is not the fighter Bernie Sanders was back then. She's very popular. I'm not going to take that away from her. But in terms of where she would actually take it, I would have much more faith, honestly, if Graham Plattner wins his election in November and then decides to run for president. I'd back him 10 times faster than I would ever back her. And that's because you have to be willing to you've got to take the fight right to them. Bernie took the fight to them in 2015 and 2016, and then at the 11 o'clock hour, he backed off. And that's why his run in
When you say he backed off, what are you speaking of specifically?
He needed to be willing to walk away from the Democratic Party and say, I'm going to take all these supporters with me, and we're going to go to the Green Party, and we're going to run third party because you have decided that corporate special interests are more important than the needs of the people. You see, Bernie had an opportunity to do that. And
Yes.
people would never have faulted him for doing it because they know that the primary was not on the level. And we know it wasn't on the level that they were doing in Chicago and St. Louis, for example, where it was obvious that they were rigging it. And so if you know what we know now we see the system for what it really is. Fast forward a decade later, and we're at a point now where I believe that elections still matter. I'm not going to say that they don't, but elections are not going to change our fortunes. Our fortunes are going to come in the streets. That's where it's going to happen. Now, you will have people that will have to be elected because, as FDR once said, make me do it. And the people were in the streets. They were like,
I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, I've actually just published a book called Wired for Authoritarianism that came out last week. And it's about the history. You know, Trump did not invent authoritarianism. It goes back, or fascism. There's a brand of American fascism. This is a different conversation, which you might want to have. I think you might enjoy this book. But it really looks at the history of authoritarianism and fascism back to the beginning of the country. And there's a very credible and scary form of American fascism that sort of came with the founding of the country. Yeah, I think that I just want to say that I think that we're at a period of history where the Democratic Party, I mean, I think the reason Bernie is important is that he does speak out in an unvarnished, robust way for, a real transformation in corporate power. I mean, and he's been very consistent, and he's a credible voice in a very large part of the population. I mean, one of the things I found in doing this research for this book, Fighting Oligarchy, is that the kind of stuff that Bernie Sanders says, if you put it into polling data and you ask people, for example, what do you feel about the merits of large corporations? How do you feel about what the existence of large corporations, and then a whole set of questions about what they do, and are they responsible for tax problems? They come out sounding, and this includes people who voted for Trump. And I put this data very early on in the book because I was so struck by it. The American population is fed up with the corporate system. They really are. They hate corporations. 70%, super majorities of the American public say that they hate large corporations. They feel they're destroying the country. About the same number say we need a robust labor movement, and they're really in favor of, emerging strong labor movements. They, on a whole range of issues, this is what's interesting, and this is across party lines. And 2/3 of American, well, about more, it's the greatest number of Americans are now independents. But if you go across, Trumpists, independents, and Democrats, the attitude on class issues, which the left has traditionally embraced, is just unbelievably favorable for the left. I mean, read the book, look at the data. These are not left-wing polls. This is mainstream polls, and it's over a substantial period of time. And it includes a lot of what people in Trump's base think. When you look at those polls, you come away thinking somebody like Bernie Sanders could easily be elected, because they are essentially affirming the economic agenda and the economic critique that Bernie talks about. Honestly, I mean, it's amazing how widespread that, but it's very, very solidly put in and so the problem is we don't have a political system that is sort of like moving to embrace that kind of, to sort of say, wow, we have a super majority of people who are ready to go in a totally new direction here. And that's not my will or wish. It's really deep into the polling data and so forth. And the problem is, as you guys, I'm sure you know, is that, as you say, we've never had a kind of democracy which reflects the will of ordinary people. It's always reflected, people who the robber baron elites, the corporate elites, who always have, the Bush and Bush light sort of politics, and it's always dominated our country. The New Deal was a little bit of an exception now, but
let me ask you something. I don't want to forget this. When we were talking about the New Deal, are you familiar with the 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights?
Tell me a little bit more. I've heard of it, but yeah.
Okay, so the 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights was basically the extension of what FDR had wanted to complete. So it like includes healthcare, housing, educate, like it includes
right.
And a friend of ours, Professor Harvey Kay, who's at the University of Wisconsin, he and Alan Minsky of PDA have put together, and they wrote this article basically trying to revitalize the 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights.
Right.
And to me, those are things that need to be our minimum.
Absolutely.
Those need to be our baseline. And so nobody even really talks about this. And it's already there. We already know all the things that we need to do.
And you know why it's so important? Again, it's because the public really embraces this stuff.
Yes.
They really do. And, you know, because the Democrats and nobody is really putting that stuff out there in a credible way, that's what allows these kind of cultural issues and the right-wing populist kinds of diversions. That's why it's getting traction, because if you had a mainstream party putting forward the 21st Century Bill of Rights, we would be having a transformation of this country.
Yes.
But and the public opinion is there.
On my little campaign, I promoted the 21st Century Bill of Rights.
We should keep talking about this because the people believe it. They don't have to call themselves left. Like I say, I just was blown away by, even in the Trump base, the extent to which people would take that 21st Century Bill of Rights around economic rights, basic healthcare rights, educational rights. I see this among my students too. They're not activists, they're not left-wing, but when I describe even something like, Bernie likes to talk about Denmark. I have students from, say, Copenhagen. They talk about what their healthcare and their college education and what their job training is like and so forth. They say, I'll go there in a second. When people are confronted with the realities of what could be, they already deeply believe in this stuff, which is pretty amazing because the ideology has been so lacking. People. Yeah. So, this is a really hopeful thing about America, at least, is that despite the fact that our politics have been completely hijacked by this kind of corporate elite and it's melding with right-wing populism and kind of American fascism, there is a foundation, a true foundation in the country and in the way people are already thinking about the world for a very different kind of politics. And that's really, I think, that's why I came out of, when I was writing this book on oligarchy, why I came out feeling more hopeful. I just had never really recognized how deep and widespread this, and how profound, going back to your, sort of the rights that the New Deal wanted to put forward, the basic economic rights that would make people's lives tolerable and basically humane, they're overwhelmingly supported. They really are. And so they're, I think that the thing that makes me think maybe we can move in that direction some is that if the resistance, the anti-Trump resistance on the streets, let me go back to what you said about the streets. I agree completely. Politics ultimately depends on what happens on the streets. We have very large movements on the streets right now. We don't know if they will really gain long-term traction or what kind of political, in the political party system we'll find. But we've got a foundation, one in over 2/3 of the American public in terms of their basic bedrock view of what the country should look like. And two, in this massive resistance rising, which is beginning to include a larger number of people like, say, Chris Murphy and Ben Holland, these Democrats that you don't think of as sort of left-wing or whatever, but who are sort of being pushed by the force of their own constituency to sort of, the economic issues, the class issues today, I don't think have ever been as pressing since the Depression as they are now. We have 2/3 of the country, which for at least 20 years have been saying that they're living, like what Bernie says, paycheck to paycheck. They're really struggling to get by. And I think for most, college educated, more privileged people on the left, they really don't understand. And that's why I think often race and gender and other kinds of politics get divorced from class politics, which are, we're in a period of history where a genuine class politics will win overwhelmingly. just because people are hurting so much and because their needs are so deep and the views are now so deeply ingrained. Read this book if you don't believe it. They really are there across the entire board, no matter whether people say they're right, left, or middle. These anti-corporate, class-based views are in the foundation of the American psyche right now, the political psyche. And so there really is a possibility. And if the resistance, it does it get expressed on the streets? And, you know, the fact, again, this anti-corporate politics is very tied to what you guys were talking about before I came on about Medea and anti-war politics. Yes. It's really, really tightly related to foreign policy and war. Trump won, I think, because one, he said he was going to throw out the rats who are taking away the jobs, and going to throw out the warriors, and bring the money back.
A peacetime president, a really big peacetime.
Yeah,
president.
big time. No foreign wars. No, all the money's going to come back with the jobs here. Well, this is what people want and believe, and so if you can get what's already there, a public which is foundationally committed to a kind of belief in the 21st century Bill of Rights, basic economic rights, to get, not out of some huge idealism, but out of desperate need, the fact that people are not surviving, and they just really need this to get by. But that's all tied as well to an anti-war politics, and the Democratic Party has been utterly, it's been bankrupt on the economy, and it's been bankrupt on the foreign policy. And so, that's why I mentioned the fact that I think that the resistance is bringing more people in who are both very aware of the economic issues, but also aware of the war issues. Trump has gone to war in all kinds of ways that has made his promises seem crazy. And these people who voted for him are now becoming aware that this guy who promised that no more wars and starting endless wars, and this guy who promised to bring jobs and money home is basically cutting the taxes of billionaires and turning the entire government over to billionaires. So, there's something becoming so obvious. And the problem is that the Democratic Party, as you guys keep talking about, is so roped in to the sort of corporate fascist,
military,
militarist forces. I mean, a tiny fraction of people and viewpoints have taken a stranglehold on the country, and that's where it takes the streets. That's why I have some hope, because of the enormous power of people on the streets today. Let's hope that will continue, and that that the Democrats will be forced into. The economic class issues are exploding so powerfully that I don't think that the sort of Clinton's, the Clinton third way politics is going to survive. And I think there's a real possibility. I don't want to be overly, optimistic about this, but there's a chance that there is this long history of left progressive class-based populism. And, if you know that history and then you see what Americans believe today, you can be a very soberly optimistic person about the possibility of change. It's there in the people, it's there in the public, it's there in the resistance. And the question is, are we going to get an expression in the political realm that will rise to this occasion?
Well, I don't have any confidence in the Democrats. This is a big problem, because the Democrats are still on the take. So as long as they're still on the take, we're not getting our needs met by those people. I actually am of the belief, and I've said it many times on the show, I don't think you're going to see another Democrat in national office. I don't think you're going to see another Democrat president from this incarnation of this Democratic Party. Because as much as people are not happy with Trump, and I live in Marjorie Taylor Greene's old district now. So I'm surrounded by people that voted for Trump, and a lot of them are not happy with him. That is true. But they are definitely not going to vote for the Democrats.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the Democrats, their poll numbers have been, Trump is in the low 30s or mid 30s. The Democrats were in the high 20s or
Exactly.
They are really unpopular. So I agree with you. There's a long way to go here. And
Yes.
I just hate the Democratic Party for all, because they're responsible for so much of what's happened. On the other hand, Trump is not going to be, and the Republicans are getting, ever more dangerous, and they're going to take us into, extinction. We're dying for capitalism. We're going very strongly in that direction, in more ways than I talked about in that earlier book. And the climate crisis is worse. Trump is making it far worse. The military nuclear crisis is much more dangerous now. The AI crisis and the economic more broad crisis is much deeper. So what do? You're in a period of apocalyptic danger. You've got a fascist party running the country right now and running, a resurrection of Jim Crow and, that kind of American fascism recurring. And you got to say, where is the possibility of change? Well, I agree with what I think your guys is. It's on the streets. It requires people being mobilized for really big change. But I guess I just want to say is that my takeaway from having done this book is that I've never seen such a strong foundation for a class-based politics in this country. So
Good.
That is a positive thing. And I agree with you 100%. For anybody to believe that the Democratic Party is ready to go and sort of take that move forward is got their, given the history of the Democratic Party, it's very hard to be optimistic about it.
Yeah.
But given the choices we're facing right now, which are really, really dangerous and bad, we've got to do everything we can to move the streets and the labor forces in a way that will grab just enough. Maybe what we'll get is a kind of, Chris Van Hollen Democrat, or maybe a Graham Plattner Democrat of some sort like that, who will open up some possible doors for this kind of politics. Because the one thing of some of this new generation, sort of working class politics that's coming in is that they're more open. They're not carrying a lot of this old baggage of the Clinton Democratic Party and all that. And they, particularly when they're working class, people who grew up in working class backgrounds and so forth, which is the great majority of the country. Remember, about 2/3 of the country now does not have a college education. People are dropping out of college. People never got to go. This is a working class country, and most people are not doing well. So maybe the Graham Plattners or, the various younger generation of working class people joining the Democratic Party and running, maybe that will open up space in the Democratic Party, because there's so much power behind that if you can get that in. And I think some of these new faces may make that possible. So, it's a horrible, I've been around for a while. It's the worst political, period that I've ever seen. But I also think there are, for the reasons I've been going on about, I think there are real reasons for some sober hope for this area as well.
The hope comes through the people. It doesn't come
That's
through the
absolutely correct. Yeah. And the people are more than ever where we would like to see them really, despite all the propaganda and all the stress they're facing and that their children are facing, and all the propaganda is just so horrific, and they are politically, and their understanding of the world corresponds exactly to where the country needs to go.
And I want to leave you with this thought before you go, is that if you look back throughout history, if you look back from Teddy to FDR to JFK, even LBJ, what these men had was they had an incredible leadership, charismatic quality to their personality. And when you want to get people to move in politics today, you need real leadership. You need somebody that inspires, that can get people off their butts to actually fight, because again, you can only be knocked down so many times before you don't believe it anymore. So I understand.
Right.
But I also understand when somebody has a true gift to do this. That's why when I see somebody like Plattner, I know he has the it factor. I know Zoran has the it factor. Unfortunately, he can't run for president. But there is a dynamic within that category of left populism that with the right leaders, I don't want to take anything away from Van Hollen. I appreciate the efforts he's making right now, but he's not that guy.
Right.
You will find it, you will sense it, and it will be real. And so that's why, even though he is on the political right, keep an eye on Thomas Massie and what he may end up doing, because if you have somebody in this country who's truly leading an effort in an anti-war populist movement, granted libertarian politics from an economic standpoint can't make a country run, can't allow a country to function properly. You have to take the good with whatever you can get right now, because we are heading for revolution one way or the other.
Right.
So it's just a question of how it ends. And we obviously both want to thank
you. I share your view, and I think the personality issues are really important. It's true. Politics is very, very personal, and it's very emotional. And politics is ultimately based on how people are feeling deep in their guts, and it's very visceral. I mean, like I say, what makes me hopeful is that people's guts, their visceral feelings, are aligned with this kind of populist, this good kind of populism. They just feel it so strongly in their guts, and they feel so angry at the people ripping them off. They know they're being ripped off. They feel it. It's like in the gut. So I agree with you. If you can find somebody who articulates that, who really is emotionally, viscerally resonant to what people are feeling, we could go a long way. And I don't care what they call themselves, independent or Democrat.
Exactly.
It's happening. And if it's a leader who comes and says, I'm an independent, I'm happy to go for that person who embodies that in themselves, and that people see what they really believe, emerging. Then I'm all for it.
Professor, thank you very, very much. Guys, the link is in the description for...
Go get the book. Go get the book and read the book.
Yeah, it will surprise you what people are thinking. It's really amazing what the possibilities are here.
Good. You'll feel inspired, which is what a lot of us need right now.
Right. We sure do. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. It's great to be. I love listening to you. Say hi to Medea for me. I'll talk to her myself. But nice to see you. I got some new books coming out, so I hope we'll be able to have another conversation.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too. Take care. Bye.
So these conversations are...
I love me all the professorial people. That. Like I love when we have all the smart professors on the show. Makes me happy.
Well, that's why, again, the thing that he mentioned that I thought was very important is that you think about how much the average person cannot stand multinational corporations and how devastating they are for this economy. And so one of the reasons why that is such a bad thing is because it is the mindset of the megaopoly. If you want to talk about why John D. Rockefeller may be the most radical tyrant who ever lived, you have to think about all of the things he did via Standard Oil. He's the person who basically got you hooked on medication. Big Pharma comes from John D. Rockefeller. He was also somebody who did not want the average person being educated. He wanted the average person to be uneducated so that they will work in the factories and not ask questions, so that the oligarchs can get richer and richer and more powerful.
Okay, I have to tell BB Wahoo the time is now. We're going to have our bull right now. BB Wahoo said they wanted to smoke with me, so.
Same problems are existing right now as we look forward. And when you think about the oligarchic situation that we're faced with today, it actually comes at a perfect time with this story regarding Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump. And
wait. Come on.
You have something to show the populace? Oh, there they are. So as you can see, these are the two Kushners in their natural habitat and actual form. The thing about the Albanians that maybe a lot of people know or do not know is that they're a culture that you really don't want to mess with. It's kind of like a known thing. And I'm not just talking about Liam Neeson in Taken. It is just a known thing that the Albanians are a very nationalistic, proud culture that dates back thousands of years through many different empires. and their people always stick together, and they understand when something really bad is coming down the pike in their community. And so I can't emphasize enough. And I mean, here's how we set the table. If anybody is familiar with what Kushner and Ivanka are trying to do in Albania right now,
They're trying to buy Albania.
Trying to buy the country.
They're trying to buy Albania. Now, what their nefarious intentions are, whether it has something to do with these bunkers and the infrastructure that I have heard is built underground on that island that they're looking to. These are people that are planning their escape because they know their time is running out.
Correct.
That's what this is. And I don't think the people of Albania are having it.
You want to hear from Ivanka Trump, or you want to hear from Jared Kushner first?
I can't listen to either of these tools. I can't believe I'm going to have to listen to both of them.
Just answer the question, please.
I hate them both. Fine. Ladies first.
Project with my husband in the Mediterranean. It's massive in scale.
I think that's an understatement. Can you explain?
Yes, it is. It is.
There's no power on this island. You're building everything from scratch. Correct.
Well, it's an unbelievable, beautiful 1,400 hectare private island in the middle of the Mediterranean. We were on a friend's boat.
No, Albania is not an island, but this island is part of Albania. And then they're also including a portion of the mainland in this big project that's included. So even though Albania is not an island, they're buying an island of Albania.
I want you to understand how massive this is, how absolutely absurd this is. This is, you want to know what hectares are transferred into our language? That's 3,500 acres of land. That's what they want. That's a lot of land. Just for them. Just for the two of them. It was unbelievable. And we were on our friend's boat. Why don't you just say where you really were, Ivanka? You were on a mega yacht having this conversation.
Right. We're on our boat.
They were on a dinghy. They were on
their little, I'm sure it was a stand-up paddleboard, right? So I love the way she talks about it. Like they're somehow the explorers and she discovered some island, this quaint little island. Like she talks like they discovered it.
Well, that's naivete if there ever was, but you know,
but
she's
have you been?
And we stopped for a swim. Effectively, that's how we found it. We swam to the islands. We went on a hike, barefoot all the way up to the top, and we were just captivated. And it stayed with us ever since. And over the course of many years, we developed the opportunity to help realize its potential and transform it, but with a lot of restraint.
What does that mean?
We're going to colonize it.
We developed the opportunity to transform. Like, what are you saying? God, I hate the word salad. Say what you mean. We're colonizing it. We're buying it. We own it. We own everything. That's what she means.
And care because the land is so beautiful that really the architecture has to be fully integrated into it, almost rise from it. You know, it's not even a business for me, despite the scale of it. We not only the island, but we have 5 miles of beachfront directly across from the island, this beautiful peninsula with a lagoon.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's on the mainland. That's on the I'm telling you, Albanians, people of Albania, please do not allow this to happen.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute.
On one side, the ocean on the other, beautiful white sand beaches. For me, it feels more like a challenge than anything else. The culmination of all of my experience in real estate, all of my travel, a lot of reflection on how I want to live, how I think people increasingly are wanting to live and trying.
You know what, Ivanka? People are increasingly just wanting to live. The fact that she's sitting there and talking about how people want to live. This reminds me, my mother-in-law had friends and has friends that asked me years ago, where do my people winter? She said that. Where do your people winter?
That's a rich person's slogan.
Right. And of course I turned to her and I'm like, exactly where they summer. But this is what this sounds like, how they want to live, as if all these people, Ivanka, have so many choices of how they want to live. See, this is enraging.
This is disconnect. Let me tell you, the one thing about the two of them, because apparently they're the two most sadistic of the entire bunch, because they're the sharpest. They very rarely speak. Like, you don't normally hear the two of them kind of go out in public and let it fly. She's letting it fly in a way that I've never heard her let it fly before. But she's showing her entire ass. She's showing her entire family's ass. They are telling you just how much they think of the average person when they talk like this. Because remember, they're basically living off of our backs. That's what they're doing.
She's a Zio vulture.
She's a
Zio vulture.
Really build something that's a tangible manifestation of that. That requires a lot of vision, the collaboration of some of the greatest masters that exist. So I was just there walking the land, really just trying to sort of be with it and experience it alongside some of the.
Is this Gwyneth Paltrow talking now?
No.
Greatest living art.
I can't. Ivanka, you wouldn't understand the concept of appreciating land in any universe. Would you ever be able to grasp that concept?
How could she?
Land to her is something that you buy. Okay. People that think of land as something that you buy will never understand the value of that land. That's colonizers speak. So
architects of our time, like true masters of their craft, people with integrity so absolute, like there will be no compromise. And that's something we want to create there. So we're very excited.
Okay, Ivanka, you haven't met a person with integrity in your entire life. I would suggest that nobody in your life has an ounce of integrity.
No.
That's what I would suggest. So it's funny that she's talking about knowing people with integrity.
To have such a disposition of, and she is not part of the 1%, she's part of the 0.0001%. She's at a level that
since Trump's been president, they've made a fortune. He is now finally the billionaire that he always dreamed of being.
Well, I told you I'm really, really rich, and I proved it.
Yeah, he was pissed about his tax returns being released because he's embarrassed that he's not as rich as he said he was. That's why.
Yeah, it's not a question of him cheating.
Oh my God, this bitch.
This bitch. Well, if you thought Twinkle Toes was a really detestable person to listen to, here's the American Psycho and how he feels about people rejecting what they're attempting to do here.
Promote the Abraham Accords to, make the ones that are existing stick, and then also to find new opportunities. So I have a partner, my partner Asher, who I mentioned before. He's actually of Moroccan descent and actually of Syrian descent. So we've been looking, maybe there's some opportunities to bring investment to Morocco, a country that I know you're very proud of, to really help them create dividends from the Abraham Accords. And so to show the people there that there can be great rewards, because leaders who join the Abraham Accords, it shows that they're thinking about the future, they're pushing for stability.
No, Jared, leaders that join the Abraham Accords are cucks that are owned by you and other Zio Epstein class fuckers. See, that's what they are. Because anybody that has any sense of like pride whatsoever, people like, the Palestinians, they're not with that. So the people you're talking about are tools. But yes, continue.
What is wrong with his face?
I think he's a lizard person. Honestly, he could be like Peter Thiel's son, maybe. I don't know.
Anything's possible.
It shows a lot of wisdom and a lot of forward thinking. So those are the environments where I think investors would want to be in. And I have a lot of, American investors who are very, who love the Abraham Accords, who want to
choose your words. Choose your words very, very carefully. What he's saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that he has a lot of rich Zionist criminal friends who would love to buy your territory, and you will be rewarded very handsomely for it, aka becoming part of the Abraham Accords.
Wait a second. Jared Kushner served?
No, what are you, crazy?
Okay, that's the second person that called him a jarhead. So I'm just confused. That's all. I didn't think so.
He's not a jarhead. What are you kidding?
Okay, I didn't
join
think
us in
so.
that. So we're looking at
He doesn't
opportunities
look
to
like any
invest in
Marine
countries who have
I've known.
joined the Abraham Accords, but we're also looking at opportunities to invest in countries that might join the Abraham Accords and to create economic packages to incentivize them. So
You mean bribe?
Or terrorize them.
Or terrorize them.
See, you think they start out offering money. And then when you don't take the money is when they start making you the offers you can't refuse kind of thing. That's when that happens. That's when they make your life so unbearable and so miserable, you know, like the continuous Nakba that's been going on since 1948. More of the same. More of the same.
Very much.
Another one of my partners is Syrian, and he said, Jared, we should put together a big investment package maybe for Syria, so that if they join the Abraham Accords, they could have a big incentive to do it. How amazing would it be to have, you know, a Muslim and Jewish firm working, Jewish partners, you know, with American, you know, working together to try to bring investment there.
So angry.
Something we're looking at. Obviously, there are some complications, but I think there's a
that Syrian motherfucking leader, he doesn't get to count as a representation of Muslims. Oh,
gee, I think, you know, you wonder
sorry.
if people are, I mean, you wonder if people are starting to get it now. Why is it that Bashar al-Assad was taken out of power? Because Assad would not do business like this.
No, that's the whole point. So again, yes, a Muslim who is basically whatever our Muslim friends, what's the Muslim equivalent of an Uncle Tom? Please put it in the comments. But if you're going to be doing that kind of stuff, you don't get to claim that there's some sort of breakthrough. Oh my God, this guy.
Ton of potential there. And if they were to join the Abraham Accords, I think that there's a lot of people who would want to invest there to help give them the best chance to achieve their full potential.
I agree, Medi. It's true. He has like 1,000 filters. You're right. His face looks completely blurred.
I've never seen Botox that bad. I mean,
well, I don't think it is. I think Medi's right. It's filters more than anything.
Well,
I mean, he might have had work done, but more is filters.
But he, to me, truly comes off like a psychopath. He comes off as somebody who truly takes pleasure in being a villain. Like, there are people that are like that. And I think
it's him and Alex Karp. I feel like him, Alex Karp, Stephen Miller, like that to me is like a pretty good trifecta of evil. But yeah, Jared Kushner just looks like he has no soul. His eyes are empty. He reminds me of, you know what he reminds me of? He'd be a character in like The Devil's Advocate.
That's something like that.
You know what I mean? He's he is scary.
Well, the Albanians are not taking this lying down.
Albania!
Despite what they're saying. One of the last untouched areas of the or Uncle Ruckus is called the
Coulee. Okay, is a Coulee. Okay, so now Dr. MK Ultra, on a scale of 1 to 10, how offensive is it for a white woman wearing a keffiyeh to use the word Coulee? Put in the chat. Thank you.
And so what I also think is interesting about this project, ladies and gentlemen, is why is it, you know that Kushner is the mastermind behind this. His father, the whole Kushner family, if you look into them, you trace their roots to the founding of Israel, to their relationship with the Rothschilds.
I was going to say, they're Rothschild connected.
Yeah, so what I think is probably more interesting here is they haven't even been able to get anything underway in Gaza. So you really have to wonder, what is the motivation here? I don't understand.
Message received. I won't do it, but I'm going to have my Muslim friends do it for me. That's what I'll do. Just like Sabby can call out the people that I can't. Thank you.
So anyway, so Kushner is focusing on this project now. It would make you wonder, they went through all that trouble to draw up those renditions with Witkoff that this is what we're going to do on the Gaza Strip. And now he's pivoted to this. You can't do both of those projects at the same time.
Why not? He's very busy.
Yeah.
He's very busy ruining the fucking globe.
Well, he's probably an android, as you suggested. He's something. Whatever he is, he's
Again,
like
he
Bishop.
really reminds me of Peter Thiel. Like those two very much give me the same. I get the very same vibe from those two people. Go out, Medea.
Ka një revolt madhe popullore për atë që po ndodh në gjithë Shqipërinë, ama shkëndija ishte ngjarja në Zvërnec që e pam gjithë në rrjetet sociale, një shqiptar u tërhoq zvarr nga disa persona me bluzë të zezë, një firme sigurie, sepse po protestonte kundër një gardi që është vendos aty në mënyrë të jashtëligjshme.
Okay, if she's speaking Albanian, and if that is in fact their language, people, if you know what is their language, whatever it is, it's definitely sounds like a Latin language. It sounds very similar to Italian. I hear like almost like an Italian sort of sound to it. Tell me, people, if I'm crazy. They don't want this there. And people who are saying that Albania has always supported Israel, yeah, the government, I'm sure. Because they're under us, that we bully them. That doesn't, and whoever's in leadership is our bitch, but doesn't mean the people are with this. No. Just like the people of Turkey or Greece or Cyprus, they don't want any of these people there. Just because their governments are willing to, like, bend over for us.
My God, it's like they're looking for every last, crevice on the planet to destroy, to colonize, to reappropriate for whatever reason. This is what sick, demented animals do.
Right. No, I know. You guys, look, I know exactly where Albania is. I just do not know what language they speak. And if it is in fact called Albanian, I don't know. I have a friend that's Croatian. I know that, but I don't know Albania, guys. So, they speak Turkish mixed with Italian and Arabic. Okay, so I'm not crazy that I heard that woman definitely had, I heard words in there that I probably could tell you what the words were because they sounded Latin root, but yeah.
Well, again, you got a lot of smart people in the chat, so there you go.
Albanian is similar to Romanian. Okay, cool. Thank you, people in the chat.
We were on a friend's boat and we stopped for a swim. Effectively, that's how we found it.
That's how we discovered this beautiful island.
Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama worked with Kushner to approve the project, estimated at $4 billion in 2024. Let me explain something to you, ladies and gentlemen, about the Albanians. Edi Rama, he better have some really good security detail around him.
Hot dog. They don't speak Jimpalushi, or what you're saying. That doesn't make sense. I'm going to go with, all right, I'm seeing a lot of good information and some of you are being silly. Okay, continue.
And of all the go back. Go back.
Wait.
And of all the celebrities that have used their platform, huge platform for absolute good, Bella Hadid is obviously one. She's Palestinian. But Dua Lipa has been doing the exact same thing. She is vehemently.
You mean Alana Hadid? Hadid? I mean, has Bella Hadid been doing a lot of it too?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, both of them.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I follow Alana, and she's now one of the producers of Matthew's movie. So that's how I was asking. Anyway.
Yeah. So, and Dua Lipa obviously is doing her part as well. So hats off to them. And I didn't realize that Dua was Albanian, but yes, vehemently against the state of Israel. Very much so. Look at that. Again, he is Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. In human form. Christian Bale is an actor, a hell of an actor. But
now they're saying Dua Lipa is a Croat. That's cool. I like those Croats. I'd love to go there. I've heard it's absolutely gorgeous. One of my trips in my mind would be renting a car in Milan and driving through the Dolomites and coming down through Croatia. And I would be very happy to also go to Albania. But
how many times have we heard these stories about, oh, Kushner's investors say the project will respect the local ecology? The same thing happened a decade. It's happened forever. But remember a decade ago when there was the Dakota Access Pipeline and they said, oh, it's not going to leak. There's going to be no problems. And then there's major problems. There always is.
Well, because what could go wrong?
They want to get paid. This is the thing about when it comes to real estate. You see, the one thing you learn about real estate as an investor, ladies and gentlemen, the people that typically are the most troublesome are the developers. You know why? Because developers generally don't give a shit about the area that they're developing in. They want the contract. That's where they bid up against the city council. They get the contract, they build, they move on. You think they care about what's going on locally if they don't live there? Of course not. Why would they? It's all about money, baby. Damien from The Omen 2 is a very good one, Danny. I'll give you that one. Oh, yeah. He's got that going on. $10,000 hotel rooms and a marina for yachts. Who do you think this is for? Who do you think this project is for?
Let me guess. The regular working people of Albania.
1,000%. They're going to be put into a lottery and picked at random to see who gets to go to this private island. That's how it's going to work. We got one more for you.
Yeah, no, this part of the world is definitely on my bucket list and has been for a long time.
Got a beautiful country.
Jamara was living there for a while.
Just that alone, and maybe that is where it's located.
I guess it's like, again, we're going to have to just use our imagination. But in this week's edition of Leave These People the Fuck Alone, Albania. How about that? How about Albania? Let's add them to the list.
Amen.
Jesus.
Talk about beautiful.
Oh my God, leave these people alone.
This is one of those situations where I do believe that you're messing with a culture that is not going to take this lying down. They're just not. Albanians are notoriously nationalistic. And
how old is their culture? How long have they been tied to that land?
Thousands of years.
People like Ivanka don't understand that because they have no connection to anything that's real. They don't understand that.
They changed their name. They changed their name. Their name was Drumpf, and they changed it to Trump.
It doesn't matter what it was. My point is they don't have roots to something. They don't have a connection to anything. People in places like Albania, people in places like, I don't know, Tyre, Lebanon, those people are connected to the land that these people have zero respect for. It is so enraging to me that this bitch is going to sit there and talk about this beautiful island where they're building a resort while they're simultaneously bombing the entire cradle of civilization. That bitch. Oh my God. It's infuriating.
Because again, as the people are rising up and waking up to this reality, you know that at some point it is. How long have we been saying it? Probably ever since we did the change, but we always knew it was coming because in so many respects, once October 7th happened, we kind of knew that that was the touch point for what inevitably is going to be a revolution because it's happening and you're seeing it right now. And as such, the more they continue to try to pillage the world, the more again, it's not a question of what we as Americans are going to do. There is a limit to what we can do abroad. What we could do at home, clearly we've pointed that out many times. But abroad, there are a lot of countries that have been looking for a reason to get away from the United States, and they are going to get away from us. You see, the people at the very top, like the Kushners and Trumps, they don't care. It's not of a consequence to them until it becomes one. But inevitably it will. because other countries don't want to deal with this anymore, and they're forming their own network through various global operations like BRICS. And that will continue. So to Kushner and Ivanka, you are fucking around, and you are going to find out if you're not careful.
Not from us. That's not not from us. I think the Albanians look like they can handle this from here. By the way, they set the president's house on fire. You know that, right?
Mar-a-Lago?
In Albania.
Oh, Albania. Oh, what did I say like 5 minutes ago? I said, if there's one thing we know about the Albanians, the fact that it's all coming out now that the prime minister of Albania has been in bed with Kushner for a couple of years,
They literally just set his house on fire.
Like, he better have like Tony Montana level security. Like, that's what he needs. And that may still not be enough. Because
that's why they need to get the island with all the bunkers or whatever the underground, infrastructure is.
Yeah.
That's why people like Peter Thiel are setting up shop down in Argentina. Exactly. With their surveillance crap and whatever it is they're doing down there. These people know that their time is coming to an end in the way that it is now. And they're all
some of them, and because Theo happens to be a genius, I don't mean that in the sense that he's a good guy, but he is a genius. When certain people are aware, like Bill Gates as well, that's when they go flee to their private island. That's why they have them. Bill Gates, I think, has one of those bunker islands over in Hawaii. And that's the reason why. Because some of them are aware of what's coming before the rest of them pick up on it. Now, maybe they're in a network and they all agree. But the reason we bring this up is because if you guys have been noticing lately, the Zios have become increasingly more brazen in admitting, not just because we saw what happened earlier today on the House floor, that by a voice vote, Section 224 was kept in the NDAA bill. And so that should not, yes, that shouldn't surprise anybody. And so why is this a big deal? The reason it's a problem, well, it's becoming more and more obvious, is because you have a plethora of these individuals who are so very, very proud of what they're now freely admitting. It's about Jewish money in politics. Because remember what we've said time and again, Zionism can only survive if they continue to put Zionism and Judaism as one and the same. Separating those two obviously is becoming increasingly more difficult as the violence picks up. But make no mistake, the people who don't want this separated are these people right here.
Last few months, the RJC spent more than $5 million to defeat Thomas Massie.
Okay. Those people are cheering fascism. This guy might as well be saying Heil Hitler. That's what they're cheering. Be very clear about that. They're literally cheering fascism. Okay.
Well, we have the most money, Jen. Remember, that's what makes the world go round, and that's the most important thing.
We bought an election.
And let me say very clearly tonight, that was a fight worth having and a victory worth celebrating. When someone repeatedly undermines support for Israel, traffics in isolationism at a moment of global danger, and refuses to stand with the Jewish state when it matters most, there has to be consequences.
Oh, there's consequences for all of us.
Let that sink in. I want you to listen one more time to the president of the Republican Jewish Coalition. Listen to what he said.
At a moment of global danger, and refuses to stand with the Jewish state when it matters most, there has to be consequences.
What are those consequences, little hat man?
Well,
who is he? Who is that?
So let me.
Is it me, or does his hat on him kind of remind you of this? I feel like the hat really has a resemblance to that. I'm just throwing that.
Well, I can't tell you if his schmeckle is tiny or not, but what
I'm just saying his head reminds me of that. Like that's what came to mind was the mushroom.
What I think is more important here, which I think is what really defines this issue more than anything else, I have been saying for a while now, and I think a lot of people are agreeing with me on this point. I think the reason they wear those tiny hats, because remember, the whole point about wearing the yarmulke, it's actually very important in Catholicism. Remember, I come from a family where I experienced both Judaism and Catholicism. And so what I can tell you is that the little hat is supposed to be a sign of respect for God when you are inside a place of worship. The people who choose...
No.
Okay, you tell me.
Okay. The yarmulke represents that there is something above you always, which represents Hashem. That's God to them. Okay. The fact that people do it in a house of worship is very respectful to that religion when that's what the religion is. But the people that wear it all the time, that's the next level. Like there's different sort of, but no, it is, you wear that on your head to show that there is something above you. That is God. Okay. That's why they wear the yarmulke, or the other ones wear the black hats or whatever. That's why their head's covered.
Well, to me, I think the biggest reason that they wear it, especially the way that they go about wearing it, is to basically say that we are the chosen people. We are superior.
No. That's why political pieces of shit like him,
like Matt
and
Brooks.
Randy Fine.
His name is Matt Brooks.
Matt
he
Brooks
looks like
and
Randy Fine's slightly thinner brother, but
right.
Yes.
That's why people like that wear yarmulke. But for example, like my great-grandparents, like my great-grandfather, whatever, he would have never left he always had a yarmulke. But so, and these were not people that were, these are working people.
Well, like I said, we've been saying this for the longest time. So much of Zionism is based around class. It's always been a class war. So here comes one of the biggest shit libs on the planet, John Podhorowitz, I think is how you say his name. I'm aware of this guy. I'm sure a lot of you guys are too. And so this is what he had to say about Jewish money in politics.
I think it is a good thing if Massie and the people like him and others believe that if you cross the line into anti-Semitism, Jews are going to use the power that we have openly to go for you.
You mean questioning?
Who's the egghead?
John Podhorowitz. Podhorowitz, I think is how you say it. John
No wonder he's just a miserable person. Oh my God, that name. Oh.
He hasn't seen his dick in years. That's unfortunate. That's small dick energy.
Another one where his head reminds me of the little pecker, the mushroom.
Because what other recourse is there? Are we just going to sit here and take it, beg for scraps, hope that nice people are nice to us? The Democratic Party is going explicitly anti-Semitic. We can see it happening. People are getting benefits, as Seth says, for being.
Jen, I just noticed something that you would definitely appreciate. I know you're going to appreciate this. Jen, take a good look at Mr. Podhorowitz's neckline. That guy is definitely packing pussy in that neck.
That's wait, what did we call it when it was Trump on the Time magazine? It was like he had neck vulva.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Or what? Somebody said it better. One of you guys in the chat remind me how much we mocked that picture. Wait, I know it's not the right time of year and all. Like I'm aware of it, but just as remembering.
Yeah,
just as to remember the situation. So yeah, this guy is definitely that. He just has it tucked in better.
Tuck it in.
Benefits, as Seth says, for being anti-Semites. That seems to be part of an appeal in primaries to the left and the party. We have to use what means there are at our disposal. And in my view, and I'm going to put it blank, that is Jewish money. There is an enormous amount of Jewish money in politics, by which I mean Jewish donors, wildly disproportionate.
Moose knuckle is not that. Moose knuckle is male equivalent to camel toe. Let's know what we're talking about here.
Moose knuckle. So there you have it. Jewish money, Jen. That's a big thing.
Okay, well that's good to know.
Not only charitably, but politically. And when I say charitably, I mean nobody really knows the numbers. Jews make up 2% of the population. According to some studies, Jews make up 20% of the charitable contributions made in the United States annually.
So they're punching 10% above. Yes,
Teresa's one of the few people that I actually feel a little bit bad for this. Okay, I won't be so crude. I don't want to be crude, but these people are just so enraging, and it's one of the only fun things that I can do in this capacity in terms of sitting here is this, and I definitely acknowledge that my most childlike self comes out, and for that I apologize, Teresa.
And so when you have somebody like Podhoretz who talks about the charity aspect, and then you talk about the charity scam, one of the best examples of that is 1877 Cars for Kids. Now, if you look into that and you look into the endless amounts of advertising that they have done for that so-called charity over the past 2 decades, you will know that that charity is all about setting up funneling money directly to Israel. That is exactly what that charity did. It was as big of a scam as you could possibly imagine. However,
you mean like Clinton Foundation and Haiti earthquake level?
There will be no consequences. This is part of the other reason why revolution is inevitable, because the people who commit these crimes, you are showing that the rule of law doesn't matter. And once the rule of law doesn't matter and you do not trust the people in charge, anarchy is inevitably going to happen, no matter how much of a police state you try to set up. You can only build, as Jen has said for many years, many times over, you can only build your moats so wide. People are going to storm the castle. Now, who really is John Podhoretz? Why would he even matter? He's really not that important, because in the grand scheme of things, he's just one voice who is ultimately being paid by the Zionist entity. With that being said, if there is a Zionist, a Jewish Zionist, who truly pulls the levers of power, who actually does make these decisions, who actually does have this type of control, it's Ron Lauder of the Estee Lauder fortune. He is one of
I
those
remember we've talked about this guy.
Here he goes.
I understand we are fighting an age-old hatred against us, but that doesn't mean we should let our enemies define us. We have a voice. We have a voice, and that voice must be heard. The organized diplomatic campaign against Israel is well coordinated, with unlimited foreign funds, and also from a billionaire here at home. It has strong allies in the media, in the UN, and our top universities. But I have to point something out.
What is wrong with these freaking clips? Come on.
We are not powerless. We have billions of dollars as well, but none of it is going where it should go, to attack our enemies. In the end, the answer to this new wave of anti-Semitism is a strong Jewish state, supported by a united Jewish people. It must be impossible to unite the Jewish people.
Ron Lauder's net worth is just a shade under $5 billion. Jews tries for Zion-Nazis. Yeah, something like that. So he has one more small statement to make regarding how is it that they get away with this, or what is effectively the solution to their problem? How do they got all this money? So what do we do? This is what Lauder thinks everybody should be doing.
The state is facing rockets of disinformation every minute of every day. There is no less a campaign to destroy the country. And it's coming from TikTok. It's coming from mainstream media, from the BBC, from CNN. It's coming from each posting, each headline, each fake photo of a starving child in Gaza. And these lies are no less dangerous.
I cannot listen to this fool. This is for you, Marvin.
His name is not Marvin. His
I'm
name is
talking to Marvin in our chat.
One more time, listen very closely to what he just said.
Each headline, each fake photo of a starving child in Gaza.
Well, I wonder what Anthony Aguilar would have to say about that.
Oh my God. I was talking to Marvin in our chat who suggested that I smoke a bowl. He's not kidding. This guy's a total piece of shit.
Just remember, the reason why we're highlighting Mr. Lauder is because he has real power. And when he talks like this, he can get a lot of people to dance on a string for him and do as is said. So
He doesn't need to say anything like that to do that. He has money. That's why people dance on a string. Doesn't matter what he says.
But as a very powerful Zionist, that is exactly why he's so dangerous.
He reminds me of the guy from The
Simpsons. No less
Simpsons.
dangerous than the rockets heading towards Jewish homes.
Right?
And they are constant.
It burns.
Yeah.
Israel must create a new Iron Dome to not just fight this never-ending cascade of lies, but it also must go on the offensive. There should be a completely new and vitally important government operation with a new director, not just a political appointee, but someone who knows PR and news backwards and forwards. It should be a separate building. It should have a $1 billion budget. Some of the $1 billion should come from Jews in the diaspora. Diaspora Jews should partner with Israel in this PR fight. Because
Yeah,
in the
that's
end,
what we're going to do.
it won't be just protecting the Jewish state. It'll be protecting the Jewish people worldwide. And Israel should use its excellent intelligence services in this fight. The Mossad and Shin Bet are second to none, and they must know where these lies are coming from.
So you understand why he's making this statement and why this is so volatile.
Because he's a fascist, authoritarian, white supremacist?
Well, those things and more. But the most important thing to remember about Mr. Lauder and why this is such a big deal is that when he says we need another $1 billion to have another Iron Dome, what he's really saying is we need you to spend your money to bribe the politicians in America to spend the money on more defense for the state of Israel, hence another Iron Dome. What he's also talking about are these data centers. He's talking about the importance of the data centers because what they really are, if you check out friend of the show, James Lee, latest clip that he just put together, which we've been talking about incessantly for a while now, is that these are not data centers. These are spying networks on the American people. And this is how they expect to get people to shut up about Israel. This is what they're trying to do. And it's not going to work. The cat's out of the bag.
Big fat burn? Yes. It's white supremacy too. We've talked about it many times. Zionism is a white supremacist ideology. It is proven by how they treat the Jews that are not the white Ashkenazi Jews.
Correct.
They don't treat the other Jews that way. The Ethiopian Jews, Mizrahi Jews, Sephardic Jews do not get treated that way. It is absolutely white supremacy. And yes, he's Jewish supremacy too, but it's part of it.
Now, we've got 2 more clips to do, and we have to pull in about 15 minutes. I want to be very clear that I'll do Theo Vaughn on Saturday myself, but yes. I wanted you to be able to hear. So guys, we're not going to pretend like there weren't a couple of major elections on Tuesday. We know that they were important. And again, what I would say regarding California, 2 things. Number 1, you reap what you sow for what you did to Butch Ware, because right now it looks like things can change. We know how California Democrats operate, but right now it is looking like Xavier Becerra versus Steve Hilton to be the next governor of the state of California. You have the biggest corporate shit lib on the Democratic side, and then you have the Trump-backed GOP talk show host on the other side. So get ready for a lot of, we have to back not only Becerra, who is a massive corporate Zionist, but I am looking forward to people having to sell that, the people who are part of the Democratic Party, because we have to stop Steve Hilton. And let me tell you something, guys. That race for governor is going to be a lot closer than people think.
What does it
Because
matter as to between those two? Seriously.
You get the
Does
same
it
guy.
matter between Hilton and the other guy? Does it?
You get the same guy, pretty much.
So
And
what
so
difference does it make?
the one election that I think does have value is the congressional race in the state of New Jersey, where whether it was by accident, because in a lot of cases, that's how some of these races end up. But we know from different people in the state who have been fighting this fight on the ballot line, and just New Jersey having a very diverse ethnic population and not being represented by their own people. In this case, it looks like you're going to finally have a representative who might actually do good by the people. We know that Chris Rabb in Pennsylvania seems like a pretty reasonable dude. We give him the benefit of the doubt. But Adam Hamawi is a very unique congressional representative. He is a doctor. He is a veteran. He is Palestinian. And he is fighting on the front lines and has been fighting on the front lines regarding this genocide. Here's what he said to Prem Thakur of Mehdi Hassan's Theo News.
People say that this is the case with places all around the world, but especially with Palestine, you don't really understand until you see it for your own eyes. And of course, you saw a very specific flavor of that with regards to Gaza being actively bombed in the way that it has been during the genocide. What is something that you wish you could put into words to someone who hasn't been able to see Palestine before for their own eyes?
I would say is whatever you are there on social media and you see horrible photos about, the killing and the destruction. And it is much worse than that. I mean, it is to be in there, like physically, to have the smells, the full senses, the hearing, to have the crying children, the families outside with them, and to see this every single day. You just can't even describe it well enough. Think about whatever picture you take with your iPhone, trying to get that sunset and that little, that shadow that you get, and you say, well, that's much more, beautiful. It's the contrast. It's whatever you're seeing on your camera. It's much more horrible in person. And one thing I've learned over many years is that you really don't know what's happening until you are on the ground and you are there. Because whatever news that you are going to get, I don't care who it is from, you're getting only one perspective.
Dr. Hamawi treated 9/11 victims and first responders at Ground Zero. He served in Iraq as an Army combat surgeon and volunteered to treat Palestinian victims of the Gaza genocide at great personal peril.
He's a hero. He's a badass.
Meanwhile,
that's what seriously. What?
Meanwhile,
this is a no-brainer.
Meanwhile, Debbie Wasserman Schultz's Lickspittle, Jared Mauskowitz, had this to say.
Wait. Oh God, you never give me the heads up in time. And then I'm moving too slow and I'm just, it takes a minute. All right. Behold this IO pussy.
According to Little Mauskowitz, the idea that we've expanded the tent to the point that we're putting people in that clearly are not in line with our values, I think, is a real long-term mistake. Adding that he questions about which committees Hamawi might join will need to be addressed after the general election. I love for somebody with such small dick energy swinging his dick around like he's the one calling the shots on Capitol Hill. But let me tell you, it should not come as any surprise that a Zio Jew talks like this, even though he's only been in Congress for 2 terms. So this, like I said, this should not surprise anybody. His attitude speaks volumes. Hamawi is going to be revered by the people, even if he's hated by his colleagues. Whereas Moskowitz is probably loved by his colleagues and should be
I don't think so.
despised and hated by.
I don't think he's loved by anybody. But what I know is that what's his name? Mahawi? What was it? Mahawi? Was that his name? Mahawi? Okay. So what that man has seen and been through and what he is fighting for and what he believes in, the Zio pussy Moskowitz, Jared, you're such a flea. You're such a little man. That man has more sequoia manliness than you could even fathom. He doesn't give a shit what Jared Moskowitz that that guy's on another level. He volunteered as a doctor in Gaza. Those people are at a whole different level of their perspective on the world right now.
And
so,
what is it about dead? What is it about? Again, you know that Moskowitz is an emasculated little man, and he's a little man. He is. He's like 5'5", and so he unfortunately is an overcompensator in a major way. And the fact that
I mean, look at the guy.
Yeah, so many of these bastards denigrate heroes. Like Hamawi wasn't just a soldier, he's a hero. Like, with all due respect to the direction that Tulsi Gabbard took, but he's Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi served in the medical units in combat.
No, he is not Tulsi Gabbard.
Well,
okay, do
no,
not
I'm
put
not
Tulsi in the
same.
category with this man. This man
even
then
higher up.
volunteered and went over to work in Gaza in the middle of a Holocaust.
Correct.
Yeah, that's another level of a human being, right? So, yeah.
He has a little more to say.
Many people say that
it's much more horrible in person. And one thing I've learned over many years is that you really don't know what's happening until you are on the ground and you are there. Because whatever news that you are going to get, I don't care who it is from, you're getting only one perspective. And until you are physically there and can see with your own eyes and hear with your own ears, you really don't understand what's happening. And we see that, it just, it's continuing. Right now, what's been happening in Gaza has not stopped despite the ceasefire. The killing continues until today. We've had an expansion of it, even though we really don't talk about it. We have the Gazification of the whole region. What we've been doing to Gaza over the last 3 years is now expanded into Lebanon. And we have whole villages now that are being bombed, and we are supporting it. We have ethnic cleansing that is happening at another level. Mm-hmm. We are silent about it. And so this can't continue. And at the same time, we are looking at how is this helping the American people? These illegal and immoral wars that we are involved with, the atrocities and the genocides that we are funding with our own tax dollars, how does that help America? How does that help us here in New Jersey when we have, working families that are suffering, people without insurance? We have, our patients or our children are falling behind on education. We have ICE roaming our streets now, stormtroopers, and it doesn't look like America anymore. We look like, we're every day we're getting closer and closer to fascism that we spent a generation fighting.
Yeah.
He'll be good. I think he'll do a decent job.
I think we need to do our thing because she told me 9, so I don't want to be late. I feel like I'm.
But I already told you that I said 9:15 was the latest.
Okay.
Do you not want to do the last segment?
That's fine. We can. Is it are we doing a Zio Hunter?
Well, that's what I was trying
to do. Okay.
Because if nothing else, I want people to be reminded of just how pathetic these people are.
How long is it? Because we also have to do super chats and everything.
Let's do super chats first, and then we'll see where we're at.
Okay.
So big shout out to all of you guys who have obviously been here this evening. As you know, we will be joining Savvy Sabs on her podcast in the next 10 minutes. So if you can, swing by over there. We've got some important stuff to talk about. Big shout out to our super chatters that are here this evening. Big shout out to Murph110. Thank you very much for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate
Hi, Murph. Wait, was
Jim.
Murph a cat or a dog?
Well, you'll see again in a second. Jim Taleb with the $5 super sticker. Murph with the $1.99 super sticker. That looks like
Murphy's
two cats.
Cat. Murphy's
Two cats.
Okay, yeah, two cats.
Two cats. Piano Man with the $10 super sticker. Always a pleasure, my friend. Appreciate you checking in. Let's give a shout out to Tony D with the $2. Neighbor has family in Lebanon. They are fleeing. Yeah.
More than 1 million people are displaced. The level of rage is just like
pretty high.
I can't. It's very high.
Dr. MK Ultra with the 11.99 euros. Jen, I think he meant Jen.
Yeah, he means Jen. Yeah. Some of them say that. I don't know. I think it's just it's okay. It's cute.
Grow some watermelons and send us pics, please.
I have watermelon babies growing. Rachel does. Rachel has watermelon babies, but they're sugar babies, so they're like the small ones. But we're not so sure I don't know. We're not so sure those are taking well, but we will eventually successfully do it.
Very cool. Marvin Vargas with the $2. Create a Zio Monaco. I think that's what you meant. I think you meant Monaco. With beautiful ocean moat.
Correct. That's what they're looking at. Zio Monaco. That does sound like that, yeah.
Citizen Pendejo with the 20 pesos. Massey's holding Liberty Survivors ceremony on June 8th. That is correct. Thomas Massie is going to do a segment on the House floor, which we will talk about on Monday. So on Monday the 8th, Massie will be on the House floor in honor of what is the 59th anniversary of that tragic day, June 8th, 1967, of Israel's attack on the USS Liberty.
Wow, good. I'm glad that, I'm glad that he's using his time that he has left doing this stuff. Good. That's what he should do. Good.
Oh, yeah. That's why I said he's special, which is why he needs to watch his back. Citizen Pendejo with the 20 pesos. So what do we do about 224, the U.S. merging with the IDF?
It's a problem.
Revolution. That's the only way you're going to stop it. And I say that because you have the portion of the country that is armed that is not on board with this. And more people need to know about it. Our job is to continue to use our platform to get the word out there to as many people as possible so that they are aware that this is what is happening. Marvin Vargas with the $2 contribution. Again, Red Crescent Brave in Gaza, Southern Lebanon, medics and docs. Yes, I think you're referring to Mr. Hamawi, and yes, there are some amazing people out there that are doing some amazing work. And that, in essence, is our job. Our job is to do whatever we can with the platform that we have to get the word out there to as many people as we possibly can. Let's not rush through a segment.
Correct.
Let's not rush through a segment. We are going to head over to Savvy Sabs in the next few minutes. And if you guys would like to join us there, please do. Do you want to take a quick break to get like a quick snack and then?
No, I don't need a snack. I told her I'm coming. So you do you, boo.
Jen is giving me the business. So guys,
I'm just saying it's time. We have a thing. Guys, we're going over to Sabby. Do your usual closing. There's this really annoying fly.
Jen is easily distracted, as you guys know, especially when she's hitting the bowl. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We love you all. We appreciate you all. We'll see you over at Sabby, and I will see you all on Saturday.
Free Palestine, guys.
Good night for now. See you at Savvy.